can't breathe. I can't move. How am I supposed to fight against these things? That knife was for me. I was going to die. Guys, it's Kevintendo, and today I'm playing Her World, a horror visual novel by Tales Shop. They've been making awesome visual novels for so many years already, so check them out. And also a shout out to Pulse333, the English translator, to bring this game to English-speaking peoples. Without further ado, let's begin. All right, our name is gonna be Kevil. Kevil is his one and only name. Is your name Kevil? Yes, it is. Someone collided with me in the middle of a crosswalk. It was a summer day when you could see the heat coming up in waves. There was clearly no one on the road. Only the sound of cicadas broke the silence. Ooh! A bunch of water has formed a small puddle on the ground in front of me. On a hot day as hot as today, how is there a puddle of rain here? Watch where you're going, you dumb... I finished, glaring over. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have called her a dumph. A girl I'd never seen was standing there. It hadn't rained, but that didn't stop her from wearing a red raincoat. She was looking at me with a blank look on her face, arms outstretched. A girl I didn't know. She just shoved me. I peered at her drenched figure. I couldn't make sense of the situation, so I forgot to get angry, and at that moment... The crosswalk signal was clearly still green, but a car with windows tinted dark as night sped past. The car was just as black as the tint on its windows. The large hunk of metal passing... The large hunk of metal passing close enough to brush against me almost sent me rolling across the asphalt once more. It didn't even look like the driver had thought about stepping on the brakes. Did they not even care if they ran us down? If I hadn't fallen after being hit the first time and kept on crossing, who knew what might have happened to me? Then again, if I'd hit the ground a bit harder, I may have been crushed under the car. No matter how you look at it, the driver of the car was clearly not in their right mind. And this girl, well, I think she was trying to save me. Hey. I jumped up and approached the girl. She looked at me. You... Were you hurt? Are you okay? I thought about it for a bit, but her eyes were just so empty, to the point where it was hard to figure out if she was in the wrong or not. Okay. It's just... Her eyes went down to my arm. She started trembling like she was frightened. I must have skinned it because it was bleeding. Then the pain set in. I'm fine. It wasn't your fault. What were you doing there? The girl slowly stretched her hand out toward my wound. The whole movement looked rather odd. Huh? What were you doing? Were you hurt too? The moment I saw that bandage through the girl's raincoat. Rain poured down on my head. It was as if the skies had opened up. What? I closed my eyes and opened them again, only to find there was nothing there. Everything I just saw came as a shock, so I had another look around. Where had she gone? The rain had stopped, the puddle was gone, there wasn't a single drop of water anywhere on my body. Was the intense heat causing me to hallucinate? What of it? The sunlight beat down on me. Only the sound of cicadas echoed along that empty street. Standing there like a dummy was only going to make me late. The clothes I thought had gotten wet in that phantom puddle were dry. The only thing that had changed was the scrape on my arm. After a quick glance to check that I was alone, I tried to compose myself and just act natural. Then I crossed the street the rest of the way as if nothing at all had happened. A normal day. An ordinary summer day when nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Straight from my childhood. It was no young first love. It was no memory of horsing around with friends. No memory of a terrible report card or test result. It was just a strange event, not worth remembering. At least, that's how I tried to rationalize the whole event. And now, after so much time had passed, because I had forgotten such a trivial event, it was like a kitchen knife being plunged into my side. Or is that being too dramatic? Ah! Her world. All right. Okay, so as you can see, the game is set up with quests, sub-stories, and episodes. So, 54 episodes. We're gonna dive in to episode 1. Let's go. This was bound to happen one day. I knew things would end up like this. Despite how much I had prepared my mind for this, it was a wall of pain. As soon as it was over, I left in a hurry. I ran, and I ran some more. I rode the subway to some station I had never been to before and got off. I was running like a crazy person without any destination in mind. After wandering for hours like that, I happened upon the neighborhood I'd spent my childhood years in. I looked up. A large university-run hospital caught my eye. I could remember cutting through the inside of the building to get to school quickly, though the place looked to have been renovated since then. Out of habit, I pulled out my phone to check what was going on. I had all sorts of messages and missed calls. I blocked every one of them. How in the world have I held out this long? Is it my brawn, not my brains, pulling me through? I put away my phone, figuring I'd completely lost my mind, and headed for the hospital. I figured I wouldn't meet anyone I knew in that direction. Automatic doors swooshing open. Crowds of people waiting for or receiving treatment. Bells signaling the arrival of noon resonated throughout the hospital. The chorus of sounds seemed to camouflage my arrival. After meandering about the place for a while, I saw an old elevator. Good, there was my ticket. All I wanted was to be in a closed-off space. I stepped into the elevator. The button for the 4th floor seemed larger than the others. Not a bad option for the time being. I jabbed the 4. A sigh of relief slipped through my lips. Anyway, I looked at it. I must have lost my mind back there. The fact that the elevator seemed much too old for this sterile hospital environment. The fact that hospitals usually skipped the 4th floor and labeled it as an F due to superstition. Neither thought occurred to me. The elevator door opened. I took a single step before noticing how strangely muggy it was. And before my eyes, there was no one. Just another wing of the hospital. Ooh. Only the sound of my footsteps echoed through the silent hallway. The usual hospital announcements, the crowds of people having their conversations. There was none of that on this floor. Huh? A woman with long hair, a ways down the hall, looked at me for a moment. Oh. But then she walked quickly around a corner and disappeared. I was the only one here. That was a good thing, though. The sunlight streaming through the far window was strangely hazy. I grabbed at a handle to one of the doors and turned it with a loud creak. I had no idea why I did it, but the sound was actually quite pleasant. It was suddenly so dark that I thought the sun might have gone down already. The windows in the hospital rooms I passed were all cracked or broken. Even the overhead lights kept flickering on and off every once in a while. It was a filth, unsuited to a hospital. The walls were cracked. Half of a wheelchair was lying, battered on the floor. I kicked a chunk of concrete, sending it skittering. Again, so satisfying when you can escape reality. Everything. Everything. Huh? What? Finally, after walking farther down the hall than I wanted to admit, I realized how off everything was. What is this place? Where am I? Is this really the same hospital? Hello? No answer. Is anyone there? Only my voice echoed off the walls of the silent hall. The echoes that returned were only me. Since I couldn't quite get a grasp on what was going on, my hand reached for a blind covering one of the windows. The blinds seemed ancient. They crashed to the floor. The metal frame clanged against the floor as it rolled, causing quite the racket. However, what the? One good thing from all of that, I wouldn't be sued for vandalism. The hospital building falling apart from decay. The cold mist hanging over the place. The cars with so much rust, they'd been in the elements for hundreds of years. Beyond where the blinds once hung, the world was in tatters. Whoa. After a few deep breaths, I looked out the window once more. However, the sunshine beating down on the hospital walls didn't return. The buildings were crumbling. The cars were rusting hunks of metal. Not a single one of the people normally scurrying about was anywhere to be seen. Opening the window didn't change the scenery. The mist caressed my cheeks. The anxiety got the best of me and I pulled out my phone to check my messaging app. Then I realized that I'd blocked all the numbers and didn't have to answer the messages every 5 seconds, eliciting a sigh of relief. With a single click, I snapped a picture of the strangely magnificent collapsed remains of the buildings. Anyone there? Hello? Again, no answer, but the echo of my own voice. Even if I were screaming in a panic, there was no one there to pay me any heed. I tried my hardest to wrap my head around the situation I'd found myself in, but no satisfactory conclusion came. I gave the old blinds that had fallen off a desperate examination, as if I could find evidence as to what was happening there. Unfortunately, though, the worn tatters that remained also looked to be a few hundred years old, adding another layer to my confusion. What's going on? The confusion made way for a bout of rage, and I collapsed onto the floor. I carefully grabbed the rusty door handle and made my way back to the hallway I'd come from. The elevator. I could go back using the elevator. I felt certain that riding that would straighten everything out, with no basis for thinking that, or reason. The judgment of a college student witnessing the end of the world only extended so far. Thunk, thunk. The only sound of that empty hallway was that of my heavy footsteps. Every footfall left a print of my shoe in the layer of dust. The cracked walls made the place smell of old concrete. I saw traces of something that had passed through there. Whatever it wasn't human. Huh? Suddenly, I realized just how far I'd walked compared to my first time through here. Had I already passed the elevator? I saw a door that had fallen off its hinges. In front of it, an open doorway. That was probably where it had been hanging. The plate to the side, marking some of its clinic, had been half worn away. Slowly, I moved to peer inside the room. It was dark, but I could just make out a light switch within reach. And then... the room was filled with letters traced in dark red. The dim light blinked as though it were about to go out at any second. There were so many letters in that discolored red hue. Patterns, drawings, graffiti. Judging by the amount of writing covering the walls and floor, it seemed as though someone had been trapped here for a very long time. The words seemed to blend together into some sort of being that stared at me. And at the door on the other side of the room, something knocked, like it wanted to break through at any second, like it was asking me to open the door. The sound scared me so bad that I jumped back, my foot landing on a piece of glass. It looked to be one of the pieces of the emergency exit sign that now littered the area. The tinkle of the broken glass helped my brain, lost in panic for a moment there, to gain some semblance of my sanity back. Oh, everything was quiet behind the door once more. This place? Where am I? The question flashed in my mind before I turned my thoughts elsewhere. This isn't the collapse of my world I'm witnessing. This isn't something that just happened. Maybe I was transported to this place when I stepped off that elevator. Where am I? What is this place? Horror movies about secret rooms in hospitals and the biological experiments that took place in them came to mind. It really seemed like that could be the case here. But then, why was the outside world in ruins? I felt a cold sweat trickle down the back of my neck. I turned away from the room full of writing back toward the hallway once more. The moment I did, there was a thunk. Then something appeared in front of me. Finally, another being was here to greet me. Here in this world I couldn't make heads or tails out of. In that moment, I felt so glad and relieved. Unfortunately for me, the thing had fallen in front of me was beyond my realm of understanding. Oh, it was black. Maybe a clump of oil? This oblong, congealed lump of something sucking the constant flow of liquid back into itself was standing there in front of me. It had a sticky-looking body, multiple legs sticking out of the sleek torso. No, more like a conglomeration of thick tentacles. The slow way it oozed about made me think of the slime children played with. And what on earth was the giant shadow following along behind it? Ugh! One hand was barely able to make it up to my mouth before the scream came out. It was like encountering a savage beast high up in the mountains. The feeling that everything would end if that scream leaked out dominated any other thought. The object was slowly sliding toward me. Without realizing what I was doing, I instinctively raised my hands in front of my eyes and stepped back as slowly as I could so I didn't provoke the thing. Where was it that I heard you were supposed to avoid eye contact and slowly step backward? But that thing didn't have any eyes! Why is this happening to me? Is it because of something I did? Is it because I ran? Is this my guilt giving me a nightmare? If this is a dream, please let me wake up! Then, as I took a few frantic steps backward, my hand latched onto something. Huh? A metal pipe. Probably had been once part of a medical device or a hospital bed. It was quite rusty, but it was thick and had some heft to it. In the middle of the panic and fear, in the midst of this surreal nightmare, the cool metal in my hand brought a completely different feeling to mind. Yup, I'm not normally like this. This isn't how I want to live my life. I got a firm grip on the heavy metal pipe. I took a step toward the tentacles coming off the thing and... Oh no, I couldn't take a swing. Something soft and squishy was behind me, preventing me from moving. Before I could scream, it had something over my mouth and around my limbs. It threw me to the floor like a beast would its prey. There was another one! Another behind me! You son of a... The thing in front of me was also slithering quickly in my direction. I could still move my right arm. I tried a desperate swing with the pipe in that direction. The rusty pipe cracked in half, just like the blinds a while back. I can't breathe. I can't move. How am I supposed to fight against these things? Do they even have joints I can target? The cold sensation engulfing my body was entirely unpleasant. It felt like sinking into a puddle of mud. The weird creatures, they were constantly chanting something I couldn't recognize. I couldn't tell if it was closer to a human language or animal grunts, but it was ringing in my ears without end. And just as the horror of the situation was about to drive me insane, I heard the footsteps of someone coming down the hill. Someone was nearby. In that moment, I pushed the fear out of my mind and I used all of my strength to rip away the tentacle covering my face. I heard a snap that made it sound like I was breaking someone's arm. After gasping for breath through my newly liberated mouth, I shouted, "Stay back! It's dangerous!" Stay back! It's dangerous! This place, it's too dangerous for you to come alone! Get help! Preventing others from getting hurt was priority number one. I had no idea whose footsteps those were, but I couldn't let whoever it was get close. I twisted as hard as I could, sending me and the creature rolling to the floor. I tensed up, meaning to crush the creature. I grabbed hold of it. It was as slick as oil, as mushy as a squid, and as cold as ice. However, it was giving off the smell of a human body. There was also the muttering and something resembling language, something that I couldn't understand. I felt deep down that just listening to it put me in danger. Please hold out, muscles, at least until that other person can escape. But then, the sound of the footsteps didn't stop. They were clearly coming this way. I said, "Stay back! You're in danger!" Do you not understand what I'm saying? These things will attack, so stay away! I've got a hold of it! However, the owner of the footsteps ignored my polite suggestion, coming right up behind me. I forced my body to turn so I could shoot the person a glare. As I desperately craned my neck around for a look, the girl I'd seen earlier came into my line of sight. Her black hair gently fluttering about her. The muted blouse and long skirt seemed normal at first glance, But where a belt should be, it looked more like a coat string. Against the white of her pale skin, the outfit looked dark enough to be something you might wear to a funeral. The girl had an odd air about her, like someone you might turn for a second glance at after passing on the street. However, the reason you wouldn't actually turn back, those eyes looking down at me, they were as cold as if she were staring straight at her sworn nemesis. Huh? The woman drew close, no hint of hesitation in her steps. Then she proceeded to mercilessly trample the creatures that had wrapped me in their clutches. As she did, my beaten brain was ripped back to reality. Oh, that hurts. Those shoes may look like walking shoes, but they've got a heel on them. With that expressionless face of hers, she pulled out something that had been hidden behind her locks of hair. A knife with a blue blade. The end of that blade, it's so clearly aimed right at me. Oh, I see. I'm a dead man. I couldn't say what I'd done wrong. I had no idea what had gone on in this world. I didn't know what those creatures were. I had no idea what kind of person this girl was. However, that look on her face as she wielded that blade said it all. That knife was for me. I was going to die. In the midst of all these experiences that felt unreal, that was the only thing standing as fact. For some reason, my mind went back to the time I was pushed while crossing the road. Such a meaningless memory. I could barely remember the details. That was 5 years ago. Why am I remembering that now? The tentacle that was covering my mouth slipped down a bit. I looked up at the girl staring down at me and spoke. Sorry. That moment I mumbled out those words of sheer habit. The blade descended. Again. It sank deep. Black fluid sprayed in all directions. The black creature was thick enough to block the blade from reaching my body, but the knife swung in wide arcs, slicing off chunks of the thing. With my arms and legs still tied up, on the left side of my chest, I felt the touch of the cold steel. I could feel the sharp end of the blade through my clothes. And then, as the pressure grew to where I thought it would sink in at any moment, the descent of the blade slowly halted. That tapered end of the blade shook, as if it was resisting something, as if there was some conflict that couldn't be resolved. In those few seconds that felt like an eternity, the woman slowly closed her eyes. She wrapped her other hand around the trembling edge of the blade and slowly pulled it away from my chest. Grab hold. Then she stuck the hand out to me. The mutilated black body had released me from its grasp without me realizing what had happened. I grabbed her hand and stood up. Thank you. Can you run? Excuse me? The woman pointed off down the hill. To the place I'd been before, to the room with the red letters. From that direction, the giant tentacle thing was coming right for me.
말려들기 전에.
Run, before you get tangled up in that. What in the world is...
뛰라니까?
I said run! Going, now! My panic-stricken mind finally found where it needed to go. I started running, led by this knife-wielding woman. Right before we left the dilapidated hallway, my head turned for one last look back. The giant tentacle shadow was sucking up the scattering black fluid. All right, my friends and compadres, that was Her World, the episode 1. There's many episodes, sub-quests, and sub-episodes. If you want to purchase the game, it is on Steam. Make sure to check it out. Thank you for Tales Shop Company Limited for sponsoring this video. And let me know if you want me to keep going. What happened to the girl? What happened about the black creature? And what about that room full of red writing? Make sure you tune in next time for Her World. Life's a switch, so let's play.